Let's review your MT7 LT3 assignment, problem number 5. On this problem, it says Maya stands so that her shadow ends at the same place as the shadow for the lighthouse. The angle of elevation to the sun from the tip of the shadow passes through the top of her head and the top of the lighthouse, as shown in the picture. She carefully made the scale drawing of the situation shown. First part, it says, what's the distance from Maya to the lighthouse indicated by X in the scale drawing? In other words, we just want to find X. Now notice, X is not a side of the triangle. That's the key on this one. You have to notice that the triangle formed by the lighthouse goes all the way to the edge. So the side length of the bottom of the lighthouse triangle is not X, it's X plus 2 2/3. So we can do a ratio here because we have similar triangles. We have similar triangles because we have two congruent angles, because the lighthouse forms a right angle, and then we have this common angle for Maya's triangle and the lighthouse triangle. So we have angle-angle similarity. So since we have angle-angle similarity, we can write a proportion. So I think I'll do that. Let's do Maya's height, which is 2. We could do the lighthouse, or we could do Maya's shadow. Let's go height to height. So I'm going to go 2 to 16 equals Maya's shadow, which is 2 2/3, to the entire shadow of the lighthouse, which is X plus 2 2/3. Now you can solve this proportion in a number of different ways. I'm going to look at fractions here. I notice if I go from numerator to denominator, I actually multiply by 8, don't I? Because 2 times 8 is 16. Which means if I multiply the numerator by 8, I get the denominator. Let's write that out as a problem. So in other words, 2 2/3 times 8 equals X plus 2 2/3. Well, let's solve that equation now. Well, 2 2/3, I'm going to write that as a fraction. So that's 8/3, because 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8. So we have 8/3 times 8 equals X plus, let's go 8/3. Well, 8 times 8/3, that's actually 8 over 1, so you get 64 over 3 equals X plus 8/3. Well, let's solve for X. Let's subtract 8/3 from both sides. What's 64 minus 8, since we have a common denominator? So X turns out to be 64 minus 8. My brain's going blank right now. Let's use a calculator for that part. So if I go 64 minus 8, I think that's 56, but yeah, we get 56/3. Well, we don't usually say the length as an improper fraction. So let's take 56/3. Let's change that back into a fraction, to a mixed number. It is a fraction. So 3 goes into 5 once. 5 minus 3 is 2. 3 goes into 26 18 times with 2 left over, right? So your answer is going to be 18 2/3 inches. And that would be the length from the lighthouse to Maya on the scale drawing. Now we'll do the same thing on letter B. If Maya's actual height is 6 feet, what's the actual distance in feet from Maya to the lighthouse? So we'll write a proportion here again, or a ratio. We know Maya's, on the scale drawing, Maya is 2 inches tall. So 2 inches corresponds to 6 feet. We know on the scale drawing, the distance from the lighthouse to Maya is 56/3 inches. I'll write that as a fraction because I'm going to have to deal with fractions anyway. Over the actual distance, which we'll call x. We'll notice, first that kind of looks like 5 6/3, doesn't it? I'm going to rewrite that as 56/3. There we go. Now, we'll do kind of the same thing we did before, because I notice, if I take 2 times 3, I get 6, don't I? So if I take 56/3 times 3, I'll get x. Oh, look how nice that works out. Because the 3's reduce, x turns out to be 56 feet. Because our denominator is measured in feet and our numerator is measured in inches. And there is your answer, 56 feet.